From Down Under.
Do or do not. There is no try.
G'day, mate. How you going? And welcome back to episode number 23 of the Fantha From Down Under on Fantha Tracks Radio. I'm your host, Adam Bray, coming to you live from Quinlan's Cantina and the Gold Coast of Australia. On tonight's episode, we're going to have back for part 2 of his chat with us. It is Adam Bray, Star Wars author and now Marvel author also. You know many of his works out there, and we're going to be chatting to him about Star Wars and, of course, a little bit of Marvel, but also what he's been up to in his writing world, and also going to talk a little bit of collecting. And as we left him, we talked about some of the bootlegs that you can get of Star Wars out there, and of course how that's starting a bit of a collecting storm out there as well. So before we get into that, here's how you can contact Fantha Tracks itself, and of course me, the host, here at the Fantha From Down Under. G'day, how you going? This is how you can catch me on the web. That's right, your host, Adam O'Brien, the Fantha From Down Under. You can catch it Obi Pop Culture on both Twitter and Instagram. You can also catch me on the one, the only Fandom Podcast Network's Lethal Mullet Podcast. But check out Fantha Tracks itself. Check it out at fanthatracks.com. All your Star Wars news in one single file. It's interesting because now they have become collectibles because there's people out there collecting bootlegs.
Right. Yeah, I remember even in the 80s here in the U.S., there'd be kind of like knockoff, figures that looked a lot like Star Wars, but not exactly. And they didn't pass them. They'd be like Star Warriors or something. And I don't know if they were bootlegs or if they were technically legal. I'm not sure, because you don't see that kind of thing anymore.
No.
Not in maybe the last 20 years or so here in the U.S., but you used to see that in the 80s. But I know from living overseas, especially in Southeast Asia, and I'm sure you're getting some of the same products there in Australia, there's all kinds of bootlegs. Well, you get some fake Black Series figures on major online retailers here that I guess I probably shouldn't name, but it makes me kind of mad when they get exclusives because they allow third parties to sell bootleg Black Series. Darth Maul was one. Yep. Boba Fett Black Series. I think some of the Stormtroopers were fake, coming from China. Hopefully, now that Hasbro's doing this new archive series where they're re-releasing some of the most popular Black Series figures, hopefully that will eliminate the demand for those things. But I know Lego. When I was in Asia, Lego is a big one. The bootleg and fakes, they'll sell, a lot of it is they'll sell the Star Wars minifigures, packaged individually. You can buy them all individually, and they'll sell, fake Lego sets and things. But of course, Star Wars is the big thing. So there's a lot of, bootleg, I guess a lot of them come from China. I don't know if, it's other countries making them too, and those end up at online retailers too here, which makes me mad. And there are certain convention circuits that allow people to buy booths and sell, an entire booth of thousands of fake Lego minifigures, passing them off as Disney, Marvel, Star Wars and stuff for $5 each. That's the way you usually know that a vendor is selling fake ones. Usually they'll tell you if you ask.
Yeah, of course.
But they don't always have a sign saying it. But you can usually, if all the figures are priced exactly the same at a booth, then you know they're fakes, because there are people that legitimately will sell a whole booth of Lego minifigures and they're all real. But then you're going to have varying tiers of prices. But
definitely.
I'm not one that I don't support these things, because the problem is that the person who buys them can know that they're bootlegs or fakes, and that's all well and good. But the problem is then they'll sell them later or give them to somebody else, and they come back on the market, and then the market's flooded with fakes, and nobody can tell what's real and what's not. That's one of the problems I'm experiencing trying to rebuild my action figure collection of the Kenner Star Wars figures from the 80s is unless you're buying an entire collection, from somebody that's had it from their childhood, if you're buying like eBay or something, you really can't be sure that the weapons, because so many of the weapons are fakes now. And I'm hearing that the coins apparently are fake. I've seen some people doing reproductions of the figures, but in looking closer, like they're not articulated, they don't bend, they're like statues. So that's a little more understandable, because you know what you're getting then. If the figure, if it doesn't bend, then obviously it's not an original. There's people that do reproduction cards. Apparently there are some cards where there's printing on the front, but there's no printing on the back. That's probably okay. I'm not Disney, so I can't say what's authorized and what's legal or not. But just as a collector, I think that's probably okay, because it's not printed on the back. It's a reproduction and it's not real.
Yeah.
But there are people that do it the front and the back, and then once you've got it, how are you going to tell if it's real or not? People are going to resell that or give it away, and then it just ruins it for everybody. So I wish I wish these things weren't out there.
Agreed. And again, at the end of the day, they don't own the copyright on these things, and that's the thing that hurts more than anything. It's a little bit like back in the 1980s, we had that toy line from Mattel called Masters of the Universe, the He-Man line. And I can tell you, out here in Australia, we had the flea markets packed with Mattel.
Right.
But Mattel was smart. They actually had some representatives come out to Australia, and a lot of it was to show off the new line. I think they were doing, it was called The New Adventures of He-Man. I think it was in the late 80s, early 90s. They were getting geared up for this whole new reset, like a reboot, basically, of the franchise. But they had so many peg warmers of the original line, all the different types of He-Man, with the battle damaged chest, with the one that had a little cap gun thing inside where it was Power Punch He-Man, things like that.
Oh yeah,
all these kind of, I suppose, a bit more obscure figures, because it was a big line. But out here in Australia, the problem was there was, I don't know where they were coming from, but there were a bunch of knockoff Master of the Universe lines. One was literally a clone of it. Another one was a different name on it. And these figures were going for only about $1 less. So I think if it was $12, these were selling for $10 or something like that. But Mattel came out, said, well, you know what, we're going to do battle with them. We're going to get all of our lines and we're going to take it out to the flea markets. And they did. They took the excessive stock that they had and priced them at about $3 a figure at the flea markets. Wow. And so they sold like hotcakes, particularly here in, it was Brisbane at the time. Most of us walked away with about $100 worth of Masters of the Universe figures, which was the whole line almost, when you add it up for $3 each. And it knocked out the competition, and those factories that were making those knockoffs went out of business.
Oh, good. Well, that's the way to do it.
Oh, yeah, definitely. But yeah, it's interesting that those are now seen by some as collectibles, and I like, that's kind of an insult to Star Wars, really, when you see the quality of them too. You're not buying quality, that's for sure.
No, yeah.
I mean, I bought this bootleg just out of the sheer audacity to see what the quality was like for our Fantha blog that we have. And even the guys were like, well, I've never seen this stuff. The fact that they're actually doing that, and it was in some of the basically what we call dollars and cents style stores. So the small warehouse ones, basically like a modern flea market. But you're right, Canterline is the be-all and end-all. It's the gold standard as far as I'm concerned in terms of collecting, and it is getting harder to find all the figures that you want.
It is, yeah. It's some things it still seems easy, but those I think it's the last 17 they call them.
Yeah.
Does seem to be getting those seem to be getting a little bit more expensive. Like when I started buying these back a few years ago, it seemed like a lot of them were around 100 and 125, but now now some of them are going up to 200, 225. So it's hard to get those last few, and I continue to kick myself for selling them when I went off to college.
It's crazy, isn't it? I mean, and the one that there's the big one out here that people still to this day, if they find one, they'll pay a couple hundred, maybe even $300 or $400 for it. Is the micro collection that came out, and they're beautiful little molds that they made for those. Right.
Yeah, those were cool. I don't think I ever actually owned any of them. My brother had a few. I'm kind of hoping I still have a few more boxes to go through. Other people in the family have gone through them, but I haven't gone through them with my meticulous eyes and hands. I'm sure I'll find a few things. I'm kind of hoping I'll just find a few little pieces and accessories and maybe a figure here and there. But yeah, they're cool. Somebody was telling me recently they found some at a steal on eBay. And I see once in a while somebody will post something on Twitter or Facebook about going to a garage sale and finding original figures at garage sales, and even in the original cards and the original packaging. I'm surprised that stuff is around, but I guess these things are, the way life is, they're always going to get passed on to somebody else. They'll always be around and in circulation. So yeah, I guess you can still go to garage sales and find that stuff.
Definitely. I mean, one of the things we found, it was really interesting, and again, it's not figures, but still, I think, just as collectible, was the early 90s run, which Pablo ran on. So Pablo Hidalgo himself, West End Games, Star Wars, and a lot of people pay big money for that stuff. And believe it or not, I paid $20 for the entire set because I bought it off somebody that didn't know what they had.
Oh, that's great.
Oh yeah. So I bought the, I think it was the revised core edition, and so it wasn't the original one, so it had a lot more in it. But then I got the Imperial and Rebel source books, and then all the different, like there was the Alien one, it was the Vehicle Guide, General Kraken's Commandos Guide, all that stuff. Basically all the little the paper versions or the paperback ones that came with it. And it was fantastic because at the end of the day, and the Smuggler's Guide I think it was too, was the other big one that they had. But yeah, it ended up being about 12 to 13 of the main books. And this lady basically, I think her son had moved out house and didn't take all of his stuff with him. She took it down to a local St. Vinny's store out here,
right,
and said, look, just have them. I don't know what these are worth. And the minute I saw them, I mean, those things were still on eBay in Australia at the time for about $90 a book. So,
oh wow,
they're very hard to find. And I mean, even is it Fantasy Flight Games? I think re-released the two main books for the anniversary, and that's not cheap either. They're all going for about $60 or $70.
Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah, I have heard it is expensive. Unfortunately, I didn't have many friends growing up that were into Star Wars. I did, I spent one part of my childhood in Pennsylvania while the movies were coming out. So I saw most of them there in theaters. Then my family moved around the country, went up to Alaska and Arizona and up to Maine. And during all that time, especially in Alaska, back then in the 80s, it was really cut off because you didn't have the internet and everything was, most of products were coming in by airplane.
Yeah.
I don't know how much was actually coming up the Alcan Highway through Canada because it's so far. But so we didn't get a lot of Star Wars products. I had to get all my Star Wars figures through the Sears Christmas catalog. Didn't have any big toy stores. No Toys R Us or Kitty City or Lionel Play World or any of those things that we had in the lower 48. But yeah, so I missed out on a lot of the Star Wars products and grassroots pop culture. So I wasn't exposed to the Marvel comics at the time. They just weren't available, and I wasn't exposed to the role playing West End Games stuff. So it's kind of I found out a lot of that stuff later in life as a young adult. I kind of jealous of everybody that spent their childhood, with Marvel and Marvel Star Wars and the West End Games.
We're kind of a little bit like that out here too. Marvel wasn't as accessible, I think, in the 80s out here. You could definitely get the main comic book line. Which, right. It's interesting to see that grow now that everyone knows Avengers so well, and obviously Thor and Hulk and, of course, Tony Stark and the rest of the team. But going back to the 80s, Star Wars, if you wanted it in the run that they had in Marvel, you had to end up going to some of the bigger comic book stores in town, not your local, what we call news agents out here, which have, a lot of your magazines and paper and all that sort of stuff. But you could get more of the obscure stuff. Now, this is where it gets interesting. You could find the NAM, which is that limited run that they had. They had also, I think it was Willow, the comic book, I think, if I remember right.
Oh, yeah.
And I still remember, I'm pretty sure Marvel did Kroll, because that came out in the 80s, and the same time as the movie, but they had the issues there in the newsagent. I remember going, oh, well, it looks kind of like Lord of the Rings a bit. That's weird. He's got this weird ninja star. So I do remember those ones. So a lot of the adaptations came out strong. They were always there on the shelves. And along with the Incredible Hulk, Thor, and Wolverine was a big one.
Sure. Yeah. I don't remember anything in particular. I remember seeing, we'd like in Alaska, we'd get some comic books in like the gas stations and stuff, but it was kind of just random, whatever nobody really wanted to buy. Yeah. But people would buy to shut their kids up on a long car ride kind of thing.
It's like the old, was it the dime novels, I suppose, like they used to have in the, again, like petrol stations, your gas stations, or in the local service, not the service station, but the, produce department. You might have out the front a little foyer would have these little paperbacks. And the thing is, these days, now it's stacked with DVDs and all that sort of stuff. So it has sort of moved on a bit. Right. But, a lot of that time, it was... I think the big one out here was The Punisher, believe it or not, was more out there than the others. In the 80s, I remember going to a hospital. I was getting my heart checked when I was a kid. Uh-huh. And anyway, they did the scan or whatever it was, and we were waiting out in the foyer there. There was about 3 different versions of the Punisher comic and then an Amazing Spider-Man. I'm like, Punisher? We picked it up, and back then it was written more like not less a mercenary, more like MacGyver. He was solving all these things, and then all of a sudden at the end, oh, I am the Punisher. I've got an assault rifle. I always thought that was funny how they did that. And I kind of liked the whole Frank Castle trying to solve murder cases almost. It was much more like a TV show, the way it's set up. But yeah, it's interesting. Marvel, Star Wars, you had to go and find, and now obviously it's a lot easier to find now that the I suppose Marvel's really taken that on now after Dark Horse had done its run. And I still enjoy the Dark Horse lines that they had, but it's interesting to see where it goes now. But we have somebody to thank here, and that is, of course, for his Marvel work and opening my eyes to more of the mythology of the universe. And that is you, sir, Mr. Adam Bray. I want to thank you for your work with Marvel, because now I think you go into one of these movies with the knowledge that you get from what you've written, and particularly Thor, for me, has just opened my eyes.
Oh, yeah. It's, like I was telling you, Thor's, it's probably my favorite corner of the MCU, and I love Ragnarok. It's right up there with the Guardians of the Galaxy movies, and I really enjoyed researching not just the movies but the Norse mythology, because it's something I really didn't know anything about. And it was just fun, learning about, all the gods and goddesses and the stories and the legends and things. And it's very kind of Tolkien. I'm not sure which European traditions he drew on it. Norse might have been one of them. I know it was Finland and some of those countries, but it reminded me those sorts of stories a lot. So I tried to weave some of that into the book where I could, and got it in a few places. I don't think all of it survived, partly because they move pictures around, move the layout around, and then some of the things you write gets kind of you lose it on the cutting room floor, or maybe Marvel doesn't necessarily want to go in that direction. But some of it remained, especially a few little odds and ends about Asgard that I wrote. So that was fun to dive into.
It's a lot of fun. Asgardian mythology, in particular, I think when I first saw it, it was the Norse, the Viking. But I've always thought there's kind of it feels like Naboo a little bit in its visual sets, but it's just taking that next level and giving it, again, that the pageantry of, I suppose, a medieval epic. And that's what I love about Thor. But then again, he's a superhero on top of it.
Right, yeah. He's pretty cool. He's so well fleshed out in these movies, and so he's kind of a super powered hero, but he's also very relatable in many ways, and he's kind of left the poor guy with nothing left to lose at the end of Infinity War. I'm kind of, I don't want Chris Hemsworth to leave. I'm kind of hoping they'll maybe hook him up with somebody and repopulate a planet or something. create a new Asgard. The interesting thing is Lady Sif. She's away on a mission, apparently, during everything that happened in Ragnarok and Infinity War, and I believe Valkyrie and what's his name, the Rock guy. I believe my understanding is they escaped on a ship or something. So hopefully we'll see the three of those in the next movie, or maybe even in another Thor movie. So Thor is not entirely alone. He's still got some friends from Asgard and the like. So I hope there's a future there.
If we get Korg and Meek in there and Valkyrie, we're set, you know. Hello, my name's Korg. This is my friend Meek. You know, like you get Tiger in there. You know, it's great, and the fact that he's working on the Mandalorian is an added bonus, because no doubt every movie he does a character. So we're going to get a Tiger character somewhere in this TV show, I reckon.
Right. I'm really excited about that. I think that was probably the most exciting announcement to me from the whole Mandalorian of who's involved was Taika Waititi. Mm-hmm. So I can't wait to see what his contribution is. I hope there's some good New Zealand Kiwi humor in there.
Oh, definitely. And you got Pedro Pascal. I think is going to be great. I've enjoyed the different things I've seen him in, and from what I gather from a number of the different things I've read on the online from fan sites, vice versa, we're getting a real lone wolf and cub feel, which is one of my favourite stories in from Japanese stories of folklore and stuff like that from the old days.
Right.
And of course, you go back to the actual films, Lone Wolf and Cub itself too. It's about restoring an empire.
Right.
Yeah, which is going to be very interesting.
Cool.
Oh, yeah.
I have high hopes for it. I think TV's where the real future, these streaming series are where the real future of Star Wars is. So I think we've got some big things coming there.
Oh, definitely.
I guess there's rumors about whether this Episode 9 may be the end of Star Wars and movies for a few years, so I don't really know, but it does kind of feel like that way, like we're going to get a pause in the movie theater for a while.
Do you think, I think that's actually, I mean, I've thought about this, after hearing that from a few people as well, and I kind of think maybe that's a good thing to a certain extent. I think, if you are in need of something, need of Star Wars, and it's a few years between, it gives that drive, that love, that passion, builds up like it was with Force Awakens, I suppose. But if it's coming out every second year or every year as it was, I think, we get the likes of what happened with Solo, where it's a beautiful film and a fantastic film. Maybe had that given a year or two between, would it get a better reception? But at the end of the day, I mean, I love all the Star Wars films, but I think the way that the prequels were released was the best way to every 3 years. Yeah,
I think there's a real balance you have to straddle too. Of you want some time to refresh the creative palette of the creators and to refresh the palette of the audience so that they're ready for it again. But you don't want to wait so long that you're reinventing the wheel when you do it. And then you're taking a 50-50 chance whether it's a success or it's not a success. I'd like to see a pause for, I think, 3 years in the movie. Movie theater would probably be good, and then start something new.
Yeah.
And in the meantime, give us some great Star Wars streaming series.
Definitely. And I think even the likes of, Star Wars with gaming and stuff like that, I'd like to see them head somewhere new and fresh too. I mean, Battlefront's great, but I want to see more RPG and stuff like that. I tell you what I had picked up, and it was something that I knew was going to drop in price eventually. It was Jedi Challenges, which is the new VR game, which adapts to your phone and you put your headset on. And the best thing about it, you actually get an Anakin Graflex lightsaber with it, which was the first time I've ever had one. But the only thing they don't tell you is make sure you get everything out of your way when you do it.
Right,
So
yeah.
we set it up in the home bar, and we put the little reflector or whatever it is. It's kind of like, I suppose, the light where this thing's emanating from when you put your headset on. And I just kept running into the bar, running into the stools, running into the table, because you do have to move around a bit with this. But we found, if you use it in the barbecue area outside at night time, it is magic. And coming with the idea of, you get hollow chess with it, which is great. It's a lot of fun. But you get a game where it's basically you versus the Trade Federation, or versus whatever it is. And what you do is you basically plan and scale out your armies, and it's kind of like Command and Conquer a little bit.
Right.
I highly suggest people go and check it out. But the Jedi Challenges out here was released at about $300 or $400 mark, and dropped at Christmas to only $60.
Oh wow!
Yeah, so very accessible.
Yeah. No, I've not played that. That sounds fun.
Oh, it is. And the thing is, you do get to go up against light side or dark side opponents using the saber as well, which was a lot of fun.
Right.
And I don't think it's quite as much fun as the Command and Conquer style stuff, too, but hey.
Sure.
Who knows? But before we go, I'm going to have to ask you, what have you been working on currently, and is there anything you'd like to let the Fantha Trackers listeners out there exactly what's coming up in the future?
Sure, yeah. Well, I have been very busy, working nonstop on books probably since San Diego Comic-Con in July. So I am kind of worn out. So I have April 2nd, 2 Marvel books, the Marvel Studios Character Encyclopedia. And that covers everything up to and including Captain Marvel. So that'll be exciting. And I contributed to the upcoming new edition of the Marvel Encyclopedia. And that covers all the comic book characters. And that's kind of the flagship DK Marvel book, or it has been over the years. So they're both coming out, at least in the U.S., they're coming out the same day. And I noticed just this week that on Amazon UK, it says that there is a new edition of Ultimate Star Wars that is coming out in the fall. I don't remember what the date it says is. And that's the one that myself and Tricia Barr and Ryder Wyndham and Daniel Wallace did, I think it was 2015 at Star Wars Celebration was when it came out. The big encyclopedia, and so this new edition that is coming, and I can say it because it's on Amazon. So if anyone from Disney or Lucasfilm or DK is listening, it's on the web, so it's public. I'm not spoiling anything, but it does cover everything up through and including Last Jedi and Solo and Star Wars Resistance. Whether there's any last minute additions, I don't know. That's up to the publishers in Lucasfilm. But so it is current and up to date, and includes everything that everybody's familiar with, and is a much bigger book than the original edition. So it should be very exciting.
And that is a big book just by itself, the original edition. So I can't wait. I'm going to have to make some more room on the bookshelf, I think, for this one.
yeah, it is huge. I don't know whether it's will be the biggest book they've ever done, but I know it's going to be very big.
I do love this one in particular for just the layout and the information that you guys have put in as a team. It, I think, really works to that not just fans like myself who've loved for Star Wars for years, but say the generation before us, after us, that's new to Star Wars, they could really get the wealth of information here, unlike any other book.
Oh, sure. Yeah, it has it all.
It does. It's amazing. And of course, in Australia, as we mentioned off here, the book comes in a nice slipcase, which really just stands perfectly when you line it up. So it's, again, if you haven't got it, go and get it. And that UK edition is probably one of the greatest of the original version, that is. So I think the first Disney/Lucasfilm Star Wars book I picked up.
Yeah, and one of the kind of cool things about this book, the first and a second edition, that I was just thinking about last night, is the way that they've been timed in the releases. The first edition it's except for a little bit from Rebels, it's really the George Lucas Star Wars canon.
Yes, it is.
Whereas the next edition that's coming out is all of that, plus with the Disney, the new Disney era canon added in. So it makes both editions valuable as collector's items and for fan interest. Because I don't know that there are any other reference books that'll necessarily delineate the two eras quite the way that this book will do, as an encyclopedia timed a particular way. So that's kind of cool. It would be cool to have both editions side by side and compare entries.
Well, it's interesting too, the fact that you can actually see, I suppose, the split, like you say, exactly where the continuation carried on, and where George had brought up to with the Clone Wars. So, again, folks, you Fantha Trekkers listeners out there, you have to check these out. And, of course, check out the Marvel work that this amazing author, Adam, the work you're doing is just spot on, and it can include so much wealth of information, makes the experience of not only watching Star Wars, but watching all these amazing films that Marvel is putting out that much more fun.
Oh, thank you.
Now, here's where you can find Fantha Tracks on the web. You can find the website Fantha Tracks itself at fanthatracks.com for all your Star Wars news in a single file. You can also catch the flagship show, Making Tracks, hosted by both Mark Newbold and, of course, Dave Tree, on Fantha Tracks Radio, on SoundCloud, iTunes, and, of course, anywhere where good podcasts can be found. You'll be able to find Down Under and Making Tracks also at Spotify now. And be sure to check it out there, as well as you'll find all of our shows now on that platform too. Be sure to check out the YouTube channel of Fantha Tracks as well for all the Star Wars news, reviews, and of course you'll find the team from all over the world going to events, and you'll see video from those all on the YouTube channel. So go and check it out. Fantha Tracks, all your Star Wars news in a single file.